Hi guys, this is Andrew of FloryPB, and we're going to go over how to break open the LCD RAM if you would like to replace it, if you want to replace all the O-rings in it with the new kit. So you're going to need a torch of some kind. I like to use these pliers and the Angel valve tool, or not the valve tool, but the RAM tool. And I use my vise with soft grips to not mar up the surface of the RAM. It's kind of, this is more expert level stuff to get a RAM open versus some of the other stuff to do quick. But if you're going for it, we can make good improvements with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the RAM from the front back because we have this new U-cup seal for the front as well. A lot of the times your first struggle will end up being the actual hammer, which is also Loctited on. So you're going to have to heat that up too. But you could do this with the hammer on or off. I like to take the hammer off if possible because I like to get this off, the bumper. But what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to put just the front section before the first. Tighten that real good. Before the first break there. I just want to make sure everything looks good. Yep. And ideally you want to be able to turn this fairly easily. You want to let the heat do your work. But this is going to smoke whatever O-rings in there. So this is a full commitment kind of deal. Okay. So that's very warm, but we broke open the front of the RAM. I like to leave the shaft in there because it helps to clamp down. I don't want to squish the RAM. So now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to slide the shaft body somewhere into this back section here that I'm going to clamp on. Uh-oh. Might be out of fuel. Let me get some more fuel on this because I'm out of fuel with this one. Right. I just refueled up. Do the same thing here. I'm going to really target that the groove. I want to get the heat because this is going to thermally sink my heat, but it works really good at not marring the surface. This is one of those patience is your friend games. I'm going to start focusing some of the heat on the left side of this groove. There it goes. So that's warm. That's the way I like to get these things off when I have the assembly like this. I use my lathe sometimes too to act, but you can brute force these, but you end up breaking some stuff most of the time. So I prefer to crack it open like this instead. Obviously, you're going to smoke the O-rings that you have in there, but now you have a rebuild kit and access to all the O-rings. When you reassemble this, we're going to put some Loctite back on this. Not as much as they put on from the factory. I do think it's too much Loctite. I think this is... You don't want to loosen up, but I think it's a little ridiculous, the amount of Loctite they put on these. Yeah, it's still warm. I shouldn't be messing with it, but I am. But yeah, that's step one to get the RAM apart. And I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to polish this up just for the video. You don't have to polish it. It's actually probably worse off to polish it. It should theoretically be a little smoother and be a little better. But the chance of having polishing compound not leaving and then ripping apart your O-rings is much higher. Polishing compounds, it's basically very minuscule sandpaper. So it's going to sand anything that's around just to polish it. So it's abrasive. That's the word I was looking for. So I'm just going to do it for the illustration to make just a pretty marker. But it's something to be cautious of if you're going to do something like that. And I actually replaced the ram with this one, or the hammer with this one, just because the original hammer was insanely well used. And I just want to freshen it up. The original hammer. This is very salvageable, but this is a nice marker. So like, I want to treat it nice, but it's definitely, you see the grooving in there. So it's been whacking. It's definitely did a lot of hits. It's real chowdered out. That's been a very well used marker and an incredibly well used hammer on that marker. But yeah, that's for the first part of this. I'll pop back to reassembling this next, and we'll get going on the O-ring kit build. And now we can switch over to doing a few things that are for the actual O-ring kit. So we're going to pull out our O-ring kit. And the first thing we're going to do is put the solenoid back into the body on the marker. So we're going to grab our first seal, which is our solenoid gasket seal. If we look, we gotta make sure that it lines up through those two pins, and it lines up to all these holes here. That is the goal you're going for. So give it a little lube. Just make sure everything looks like it lines up, and it does. And now we're going to slip the solenoid back into the marker. Make sure it sits in its spot. We'll grab our retainer. It's a 2.5 millimeter Allen. I need my Angel tool. Slip the Allen underneath of it. And once you get it in position, you can slide it that way. Put this back on, and we'll tighten this down with the Allen. Now your solenoid's locked in. You don't need to kill it. Don't like put it this way and reef on it. You're just going to blow a hole through your solenoid maybe. So don't kill it. I'm just going to tuck these wires in through the body. Let's start with the valve, because that would be the top one here. That is 2 seals for the valve. We have our larger seal in the front. Which is a 015, and this is a 50 durometer to make it just easier to put together. and then an 012 for the back seal. Simple seals, just regular O-rings. So, all right, back to the valve install. We're going to take our cup seal, going to lightly lube it, just to try to help promote the initial seal. It should not need lube to seal it, but if you get that that little hiss down your barrel, a lot of the times that can be corrected just by a little bit of oil going down spring. Gonna lube the O-rings on the outside. I'll grab the body. And if you've never put a 50 durometer O-ring in one of these yet, it's such a different feeling when you push it past the threads in the front. All the way down. There she goes. Make sure it's lined up. Like to put a little lube on these just so they don't get rusty. Dump the valve spring in. That is now installed. Next we have our LPR assembly. So we're going to grab our LPR and all of our pieces. So I don't know how many shims I need yet, but we'll figure that out as we go. The LPR stuff will be right over here. We have this tiny O-ring. That's the hardest one to install. And then we have these two rings here. So one of these rings is a quad ring. It looks like a little square ring with two little ridges. If you guys can see that. Maybe you guys can see that, hopefully. So this quad ring is going to be used as your dynamic O-ring on the piston itself. And to install a quad ring, you got to make sure it's not twisted. See, if I put this in here like this, I don't know if you guys can see it. Focus. See, this is twisted. This looks okay right here, but the rest of it's twisted. So we're just going to keep working it around until it looks like it's two small O-rings and it's not twisted around on itself. So that's what you want to go for, is that. The bigger ring is a 50 durometer. It's a 015 again. But it's a soft ring to go on to the LPR body. And now we're going to pull out the little ring inside. Now, if yours is working fine, you don't really have to do this part. You want to make sure that it doesn't fall in. You pull out the old ring. And this is a metric ring. It's a 4mm by 1.5 or something like that. Make sure you guys can see my hands. And these are kind of a pain to put in. So yeah, what you're looking to do is get a small O-ring, or sorry, a small Allen key or something, and you want to guide one side into the into the hole. Then you kind of push it in. Make sure I'm in. Sometimes these things go in easy, sometimes they are a pain. There it goes. In the hole, kind of a pain in the ass to do, but it's a 50 durometer ring, which is really good for the dynamic nature of this particular ring. Get a little lube on that. Do the check. Nice. It's really smooth. Get that pop sound, which is what you're looking for. So now let's load up our stack. They face, the bevel faces towards the piston, away from it. Stacks on top of itself like that, and then back away from itself. There were a few shims on this. I don't know what the pressure is going to be, but we will set that as we go. I'm going to put 2 shims on it. But first, we'll lube up the LPR body. Extra lube won't hurt in there. And we'll get this sent down the bore. And then we'll wrestle the piston in. And again, this is super, super easy to put those in. Make sure the spring clicks in like that. We'll lube up our other pin. And I'll push that down. Both of them are in. So now we're going to slip a couple shims down. And I'll just do that to myself. I'll lube this up a little more. Restack my spring stack. I just put a little lube on the spring stack in the form of oil. Grab my angel tool. And now you're going to really feel the difference between a regular 70 durometer O-ring and the lighter stuff when you push it in. But that went in really nice. So the front end is mostly assembled. I'm going to pull that one out. I would like to get a front plug, which is in the bottom set. These are also 50 durometer. Another 015. I like to put a little lube on that. We'll do the other one while we're at it. Now I give you a spare 015 in here, a 50 durometer, because these are just so common. on a lot of stuff. I mean, you technically don't even need to put one on this tube if you want an extra for a spare, because this is just the battery tube, doesn't seal anything. And of course you have the front plugs, they're exactly the same. It just has the volumizers. I don't know why they're different, but they are. If someone knows, that'd be kind of cool to find out. Sorry guys, I lost my camera there. We are going to do the ram now. The ram O-rings, there are 6 O-rings if you fully disassemble the ram. You have your quad ring, which is going to go on the main shaft. Your U-cup O-ring, which goes in the front. Your 90 durometer hard 006 O-ring, which works with the snap ring to replace that O-ring. And then the 3 015s, which are 50 durometer that go on the outside of the ram. So we start with our quad ring. You snap it on. Make sure, like the other quad ring, that it's not twisted on itself and it looks like it's 2 rings going around. We'll lube this shiny guy up. And make sure it fits through. So, remove this O-ring too. And this O-ring from the old stuff. So here's the front cap. We have our one directional U-cup ring. So the back side that faces towards this brass piece has a little race in it. And then the front side is solid. This only works in one direction. This thing's kind of a pain to put on. Just be a little patient with it. And give it a little twist as you're putting it on. And it should work out for you. Make sure it looks flat, and that's perfect. We'll shove a little more lube up here. I actually want to wipe the threads off, because I need a little Loctite. We're going to Loctite this back together. A little 242, which is blue Loctite for most people. This one's not brand new. Come on. This one brand new? Oh no, it just has that. You do not need the amount of Loctite on it that the original WDP setup had. We just need a little bit. Because you don't want this thing to come apart. That's going to be hand tight now. I'm going to snap on 2 of the bigger O-rings for the front. Feels good. Feels nice and smooth. And the wiper's doing its job. Now we're going to slip on the back cap. Same deal. I'm getting rid of that O-ring and putting the new O-ring on. Just gonna wipe down the threads. Just a dab. So that's on. I actually don't have this as tight as I want it, so I'm just going to put it in the vise real quick. So that's off screen. I'm just using the Angel valve tool, or the Angel ram tool. Just give it one last tightening down. Make sure everything's looking good. What I like to do is put a little lube in the back hole and pull it forward, and do the opposite in the front hole. Make sure it's pumping the lube, which is what you want to see. You want to see it go away. You don't get access to these very often, so. And the beauty about it is you don't really need to access it very often. Finally, our last ring, which is a little snap ring O-ring, goes in there. We'll put our locker down. You a 3? You are. And we will set that in a second. Let me put the ram bumper on. And the ram. So a touch of tight. Just a touch. So let's make sure I get that tight too. So now our ram's on. I'll set the snap ring a little bit. This is by feel. That feels pretty right. You can adjust this more in the marker if it's not feeling right. But you just want it to be a bit of a snap. That might be too hard. Just helps to fight the first shot drop off as the ram's energizing. Lube up the outer O-rings. Again, I just like to lube, lube, lube. Now it's all clean. Spin it and just bring it in. I'm going to slip this in the tube. And the 50 durometer O-rings just slip in very nice. Put our tool in. I'm using a bolt out of like A4 or 04 speed. That's where I hit that too perfectly, I think. You're going to want to push this as forward as you can, your hammer. You want to keep twisting it forward because you want the bolt to snap in and push forward slightly to push into the breech. So you want that click. But not too much click, just enough. See, that's too much, can't do it. Closes, clicks. If I go any more. That's too much click. I like that. So our power tube is fully assembled. We have all new O-rings in it. We will do the flash tank next, which is this assembly here. Two bolts go with it, and there are 3 O-rings with the flash tank. On the top of the flash tank, you have An 008, which is a 50 durometer O-ring, that goes here. An 010, I believe, another 50 durometer that goes here. And then this section of the flash tank has another O-ring, a little bit bigger. That I believe is an 012. But I might have those wrong. We're going to put the small O-ring in that portion of the tank right there. That's going to be our medium O-ring. And then our bigger O-rings going down here. Like that. I'm going to get a little lube on these first. Just to help stick them in place. But you'll find that the 50 durometer O-rings just kind of want to stay in place better than the harder O-rings do. But even still, can be a pain. Make sure we're set up right. Yep. Sometimes you want to rotate this off to the side and spin it on like that. Just to make sure you get it. It pops off. Give this one a loop too. And that one seemed to like where it was. We have a 4mm key for this. Looks good. Make sure that looks all right. Let's grab the 3mm key. And we'll just tighten that down. A little snug, nothing crazy. Same with this. Just a little snug. And the flash tank is now assembled with the new O-rings as well. So next we'll keep assembling the O-ring kit. We're going to do our mini reg. Let's grab the body. These got messed up, so we'll restack this. With the mini reg, which is the last piece we have here, we have first our bottom adjuster, which still has an old O-ring in it, which we got to take out. So this is going to have a few O-rings in it. This is going to have a bigger 012 quad ring, a smaller 006 quad ring, and then a smaller 50 durometer 006 traditional O-ring, and then a harder 90 durometer 015 O-ring for the outer here. The dynamic rings, or the quad rings, are going to go on the piston itself, and then the 50 durometer is going to go on the adjuster here. And the 50 durometer is not that hard to stretch over this. This is kind of a pain thing to stretch. Give that a little lube, a little too much, but we'll put the adjuster back in. Gonna drop the ball bearing down. Give it a lube. I'm going to drop the piston in, or not the piston, but the adjustment. That goes on top of the ball valve, or that goes on top of the ball bearing. Now put that down. We have the larger O-ring, which is easier to get on. Which again, we slip it on, spin it, double check to make sure that it's not twisted on itself. And now we're going to do the small ring, which is more difficult, but not that bad. Click it in, spin it, make sure it works. We'll put this O-ring on too, just cause. And it's our snap ring. We're going to lube this up. And now we're going to take this and point it away. The second one also gets pointed away, and so does the third one, so it makes like a triple spring. Now the next two point towards. Yeah, I'm getting a little grease on these as I go. And the final 2 point away. And that is your LCD stack up. This can slip in like that. Now I need my pliers, which I just had. There they are. Put the retainer back in. Make sure it's in. We're in. A little lube up here. Get that guy back in like that. And now the O-ring kit is mostly complete. The only thing left is the breech seal and or the seal for the ball detent. So let me grab ball detent, and I'm gonna grab some glue to the breech seal. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, so we got the style detent from WDP. One of these breech O-rings can fit on this detent if you choose. This one's brand new, so I'm not going to do that. And it fits the theme, so I'm going to put the style O-ring on there, or the style detent. Look at that thing. Match the other phallic shaped things. So we're going to do the breech O-ring. This one's always a bit of a pain. We'll pull it out of the holder. There's two of them here. Could be for the detent, or could be if you mess it up. If you just put this thing in here, it will sit for a while, but chances are it's going to fall out. So you got to kind of glue this. That's what we're going to do. Grab a little bit of alcohol. I'm just going to clean this out real quick. Make sure that that's okay. And prop the marker up. I got my super glue. Putting on a tool. Just gonna put it around the bottom there. Take this, drop it in, push it down. Push it down. One more time there. And now the breech seal is glued in. That is it for the O-ring kit. We have a few extra O-rings here. I have two 90 durometer O-rings for your tank and or your reg if you would like to use them. I tend to like the 90 durometer, especially if you don't have like a bleeding on off. It lasts a whole lot longer going through the tank abuse, getting on and off. Plus another 015 50 durometer for any of the internal main seals. In case you messed one up, lost one, need it for something else, also fits a tank and fits most other paintball markers. That is it for the install of the O-rings. That is all the O-rings installed. Put the tin back together over here.